We will go ahead and start recording. Okay. So welcome to the Frontline Strong Together FST5 webinar for April 2023. Thanks everyone for being here. This is going to be a really good one. So this is the importance of peer support teams. And I'm super excited about our panelists today because these guys are FST5 peers. So shortly I will have them introduce themselves, but I'll get a little housekeeping out of the way. As you guys all know, you can find everything that you need with FST5 at fst5.org. in the midst of a crisis, or if you need any resources that are not only listed on the website, you can also call using the phone number 1-833-34-STRONG. That is 1-833-347-8766. Okay. We do a podcast every month. And in addition to webinars every month, podcasts you can catch on the website and on the YouTube page at the beginning of the month, first and second week. And we try to keep the webinars posted and live the third and fourth week of each month. So please check those out on the website or join us live as soon as you can. Look out for our FST5 newsletter to get everything that's updated with FST5 currently, okay? I'm super excited to I'll introduce Mike Mattern first. Mike is a member of the Dearborn peer support team. He's a firefighter paramedic with Dearborn. He is such a strong supporter of FST5 and the importance of making sure that we do our best to destigmatize the idea of reaching out for first responders, reaching out for support, any type of support. So whether it has to do with mental health, whether it has to do with talking with another peer, we want people to feel comfortable being able to talk to us. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mike, and then he's going to introduce another panelist, and we'll have everybody kind of give us their background and let us know what they are currently doing in their peer support teams. Sounds good? Mike, take it away.
So you want to introduce myself, or I'm introducing someone else?
Introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Mike Mattern. I've been with the Dearborn Fire Department for 17 years. I helped get this peer support started in our department about 5 years ago. I'm also on the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union Behavioral Health Committee with Kobe and Jake. And been with FST5 for about 2 years now. Do you want to kind of go into how we get into peer support, or are we just kind of introducing ourselves right now?
Yeah, let's introduce the panelists first. So okay. Kobe, you go next.
Yeah, my name is Kobe Taylor. I'm with the Peninsula Township Fire Department. As Mike said, I'm on the MPFFU Behavioral Health Committee as well, and help run the Northwest Michigan Peer Network up here. We're a regional-based peer support team that covers 18 counties, and currently have 36 certified members right now.
Okay, it's my turn. I'm Susan Andery. I am an advanced EMT with UP Health Systems EMS here in Marquette and up in Ishpeming. And I am one of the co-coordinators for our Central UP Critical Incident Stress Management team, which covers Marquette County, Alger County, and we also support Delta and Luce County. And I'm a brand new member with Wayne State Peer Support Team, and excited about it. A little nervous tonight, but just a little bit. But like I said, compared to talking in front of 150 people yesterday, that was a little more nerve-wracking in person. So I'm just glad to be here, and hopefully we can provide some information for you guys to get your own teams started.
Awesome. And Jake.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jake Steichen. I began my career down in Southeast Michigan. I did all my college work down there, and I became a firefighter paramedic, did about 10 years, and then decided I needed a change of environment. So I jumped up to Traverse City, Michigan to serve as a firefighter paramedic. I've been here about 9 years now. About 5 years ago, we identified a huge deficiency up here. So me and Kobe and some other folks in Northwest Michigan began the groundwork for in Northwest Michigan peer network, and we're still moving the needle a little bit, but we made a lot of progress up here for us.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how you guys started your peer teams. But most importantly, let's start off with how you guys noticed that a peer support team was needed, not only in your department, but in your area. So Mike, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll get it started. Probably about for me, it was back in 2016. We had a pretty bad run. We had a 2-year-old that was that drowned in a swimming pool, and it was a run that really kind of changed things. I noticed that something was different with me. I came up under the old regime of keep your mouth shut, move on. If you can't handle it, get another job. So, I didn't really talk to anybody. And subsequent to that, without going into long stories, but kind of went down a not good path with it, to the point where it was pretty bad, and went and finally seek the help of a therapist and got stuff taken care of. And I remember one day the therapist asked me in the session, she goes, what about if you talk to other firefighters? And I said, no, that ain't happening. And she's like, was there anything out there? And that peer support had just kind of started becoming a thought process with the IAFF. And she goes, well, why not? And I go, because they'll laugh me out of the firehouse. There's no way this will ever work. I'm not going to do that. And so I knew, like, at some point that really kind of put a thought in my head, like, this is something that I'm going to want to do, but the time wasn't right. Like, I didn't have myself together enough to actually start it. And I said, when the time's right, there'll be some type of sign, and then we'll do it. And about 6-8 months later, sitting at a union meeting, the e-board guys had come back from the IFF convention, and they were really starting to push the peer support program. And they brought it up at a union meeting. They said, this is something that we want to do. And, is there anybody who's interested? Still didn't raise my hand because I thought, okay, here we go. I raised my hand and I'm not going to hear the end of it. But after the meeting, it was kind of like, okay, well, here's your sign type thing. Talk to the person on the e-board, said, hey, I'll head it up. And, it was one of those things where I saw the need in it because I was the person who needed help and there was no one to talk to and there's nowhere to turn. You either got the EAP card handed off to you, and that was the end of it. And, after talking to those guys that were on the run, I mean, everybody had an issue, but we all worked together. We all didn't know the other person had an issue because none of us talked to one another. And the big thing was having that time where you wanted to talk to somebody, but you couldn't. And it was a very lonely feeling, wanting to talk to somebody and there's nobody to talk to. So that was really kind of my push to get peer support, was that you can trust, you can talk to. And so that's kind of how my peer support started. Within our department, we started with 15 people. And the first day we sat down with a whiteboard and we said, all right, what was every single one of your blocks to getting mental health help? Like, what were the roadblocks? And we labeled them all down on this whiteboard. And what we did was, as a team, just started knocking things off. Like, all of us had previous times where we could have used the help, but something stopped us. So we started going, all right, well, how can we fix this? How can we fix this? How can we fix this? And really, that's how the team got started, was from personal experience of, well, we've experienced this. I can tell you what's broke. And as first responders, what do we do when we see that something's broke? We want to fix it. We're fixers. So that's kind of how we started our team and got going. That's kind of how our progression, but I'll yield the floor to somebody else to talk now.
Susan, tell us how things are in the UP and how you guys started your peer team. I know it's a lot different than how we do things down here, but go ahead, tell us about how you guys got started.
Well, 2 years ago, my friend Christy Burris and I were kind of voluntold that we were not only part of this critical incident stress management team that we had just joined the year before, but that the very experienced group that was running it for many, many years and had started it in actually, I think, 1991, we're really looking to kind of back out and play a less role. And they said, we put in our years and now we just need to hand it off. And Christy and I looked at each other like, wait, we just joined this team. We're not going to coordinate this team. They said, oh no, you guys are going to be great at it. And so we said, oh, okay. I mean, we wanted to help people. We knew we wanted to help people. We didn't know the first thing about coordinating a team. But like I said, we had some really good people that we were taking it over from. And they're still available if we need them at any time. And they had just years and years of experience. So we did the debriefings and we're available for defusings. But then just recently, in about the last year, and actually almost 2 years ago, I think that I met the three of you, Manisha, Mike, and Kobe. Christy and I met both of you and we just said, okay, this is kind of cool because these are people that are young and energetic and really enthused about doing peer support. So we started with the debriefings and now slowly but surely we're evolving to the peer support role as well. And just being able to see the hope on people's faces as first responders when they are in dire straits and they think there is no hope for them at all is so rewarding that it just makes you want to keep doing it and makes you want to see people rebuild themselves, because honestly, there's nothing more powerful than a first responder that has rebuilt themselves. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does.
I think the other, sorry,
I'm glad that you
one more
said it
thing.
the way that you did, because I know you in particular have been dealing with a lot of suicidal attempts and some calls as of recently. And so I think not only you being a part of the CISM team, but also doing the peer work, you're actually doing the one-on-one peer work for the area as well, right?
That is correct. Yeah. We've really made kind of gotten the word out there that anybody can call us, whether they're from the counties that we serve or other counties. If they want to talk to somebody, feel free to reach out to us. I mean, Upers kind of stick together. We kind of look, no offense, guys, but we kind of look at those people below the bridge like, I don't know about those people. So we were actually invited over to support a team a couple of weeks ago that had lost one of their own first responder suicide. And we were so glad that they had reached out and we just wanted to be there for them. It wasn't a debriefing because the incident didn't happen there, but it was more like a grief session. And just for them, just knowing that people were there to support them, I think was really important. And then when I met you guys and I learned about the suicide rate amongst first responders and being so high, we knew we couldn't keep doing things the same old way. We needed to do something different and get with the times. I mean, people are dying. This is a matter of life and death. And if it's a matter of stepping up and being there for these people, we want to do it. On our team alone, we've got 55 people. We're very blessed to have that many people in that many disciplines. We've got police, fire, EMS, law enforcement, corrections, military, doctors, nurses, social workers, mental health, and trauma specialists. We're so excited about our team, and we just want everybody to know about them. So we're going to make our mark up here. Hopefully the whole UP will kind of follow and not just do debriefings, but get out there and do that peer support as well, because it does play a role.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Kobe and Jake, tell us what's going on in your area.
Susan, you're a natural.
Yeah, I know,
She
man.
won.
For someone who is so nervous, yeah.
Let's just say I had very good mentors through the last couple of years, as Christy and I both did. You guys have been great to us. We call you guys all the time. We got a problem? Mike or Kobe, hey. They're like, oh, what happened now? They got us covered. Everybody's
That's
got
what we're
somebody's
here
back.
for. Yep, networking especially. So my journey started in 2017. My department actually experienced suicide, and it was that event that overfilled my backpack per se, because I came from not the nice side of, south of Los Angeles where I grew up, and it was a lot of childhood trauma that I never addressed. So ignoring all that, this event pretty much broke me and caused a lot of issues where I used alcohol, prescription drugs, and just tried to cover it up and keep going because I didn't like, addressing my emotions. We're firemen, we're not supposed to have those emotions, right? So kept covering up to a breaking point where my fiance at the time ended up finding me in my car on a rainy night with the gun. So it was a real eye opener for me. And I really seen the need that we definitely need this. The stigma's out there and it's a crisis. I mean, last year we lost 8, which is the most our state's ever seen. And we definitely don't want to repeat that. So I started doing my own thing kind of in the 2 counties I live close to in Masaki and Wexford. Took a couple of courses, and a good friend of mine, Sean Abbey, he said, "Hey, there's this guy in Traverse City doing the same thing, Jake Steichen." So we kind of met up and very quickly, like just in sync, and knew what we wanted to do. Basically, like tear the walls down and make it as big as we can, because I mean it's more than just this city's issue or this county's issue. It's statewide and nationally wide. So we wanted to make the biggest voice possible and created a large region team, and that's where we're at now.
Awesome. Jake, do you have some things to add into that?
Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of piggyback on like some of the industry standards that I dealt with earlier on in my career. And probably the biggest breaking point for me was 2010, 2011. At the time, it was kind of like the whole world was falling in. I had some things at my previous employer, just work-related issues with possible layoffs going on. Anybody that's a first responder knows, like if it's your time in the saddle and you're just getting beat up on runs, it just seemed like for a year and a half, like I just had nasty run after nasty run after nasty run. Simultaneously, in my personal life, I lost 2 of my friends to suicide. My mom went through a battle of cancer and heart attack, which was obviously pretty crazy. Just at that time, that was for me the first time having to deal with something like that. And then a few months later, my mother-in-law had gotten diagnosed with cancer, and she lost her battle within 6 months. So all at the same time, I had work-related stuff, I had friend-related stuff, I had family stuff, all just clobbering me. And we didn't have any kind of peer support system. We didn't have any CISMs. We didn't have a strong EAP. And I just remember at the time, I mean, this was probably 12 or 13 years ago, I just remember constantly telling myself, like, this isn't how it should be. This is not normal. Like, you shouldn't be left on your own to deal with this stuff. And I was pretty unhappy with a lot of things. And I think it took the birth of my daughter kind of broke me out of that. And I took 6 weeks off and kind of leveled out emotionally and mentally, and decided that I needed the environment change. And I got the opportunity to pull that plug, and I'm grateful for that. And I think a lot of folks get stuck, and whether there are or not opportunities to get out of that environment. So I think that's when it kind of planted the seed in my head that once I had a position of influence, I would use everything that I could to make sure that that reality wasn't true in any of my workplace or anything that I could help nearby. And I've been the local president of Traverse City Firefighters for about 4 years now. And throughout the whole duration, I've been just trying to destroy the stigma. I normalize EAP use and CISMs and peer support and therapy as much as possible. We we pretty much talk about it in every one of our monthly meetings. And I'm using our Facebook account to try to just put information out there to just eliminate any of that hesitancy and uncertainty. And I think it's starting to take effect. I really do. And the one thing that I appreciate with Kobe's leadership in our nonprofit is that he really does approach it as there's no limitations, there's no barriers, and he's expanded our network to pretty much every first responder industry, and we're even involved in ski patrol. So it's just really neat to be a part of, and my hat's off to him for all the work that he's done. We've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go.
Awesome. You guys are so great. Thanks. So as we're talking about peer support teams, I would imagine that it wasn't easy getting these up and running, right? Like you guys weren't able to just go into your departments and be like, hey, I'm starting a peer team. Everybody come talk about it. And if you were, then that's awesome. We need to know how that happened. But tell us how you guys actually got your team started. Like, what are the steps you took? Do you have to talk with administration? What's the, we want to know how to start it from the ground up. So give us your steps.
I think for us, it started with the IAFF peer support class. That's one of the base classes. And no, you don't have to be an IAFF member. You could take this class without being a member with us. But it started with that. And that's one of the classes that we're really wanting to be at the base level. And then it goes into your 3-day SISM course, which you guys are now doing. And we just had a member from Metro take it and said a lot of good things about it. So that's really good. And for us anyways, get in the administration side of it. Jake was already doing that on his side. A department I was in wasn't really in line with that, and I knew that was my goal. So I ended up interviewing for a department that's really supportive, and I got a very supportive chief. And if this is really something you want to do and it's not working out for you, I say go for it. There's chiefs out there and departments that really want to support this, and if that's where you're moving towards, they're more than happy to take you on.
I would
How was
say,
it for you, Mike?
Oh, well, thanks, Kobe. I just first off echo what Kobe said. I think the base trainings, if you want to do peer support, the base trainings you have to have is the peer support training, the ICSF GRIN course, which is groups and individuals in crisis, and some type of suicide prevention intervention training, because that'll cover the SISM stuff is the traumatic call outs that those will happen. But the peer support stuff covers you on what really the bread and butter of what peer support is. And that's the daily stuff that you take care of. That's a majority of what the peer support teams take care of are, the divorces, the sick kids. I've got depression. I might have an alcohol problem. I might be feeling suicidal. These are all things that come in through the peer support portion of it. So you kind of have, you're kind of dual role. So for the traumatic runs, I'm going to put my SISM cap on with my peer support. But if somebody comes and talks to me about a life issue, my peer support training comes in, and that's kind of takes the front of that. And I highly suggest doing suicide prevention intervention training, because if you're doing this for any sort of time, you're going to get the phone call from someone that is either having suicidal thoughts or right there, like, hey, I'm sitting here with the gun in my lap, and you need to know how to have that conversation with them. Those are trainings. Now, to get a team started, I think everyone here can agree the number one thing is just getting the right people. And because if you don't have the right people, your team isn't even going to get off the ground. You have to have the people that whatever area you service, they trust. You got to have the trust factor. It's not the person who sits down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and, hey, did you hear about this? Oh, I heard this guy did this. That's not the person you want doing peer support. You look for those people that naturally people gravitate to talk to, or the ones who have that trustworthiness already built in, or they're people who can talk easy to other individuals. They got very good interpersonal communications, but also it's the people who have some life experience. You know, if you listen to everybody's story on here, every single one of us had something that happened to us that we did it the old way and it didn't work. You know, you want the people who have those life experiences. They're nothing but a plus to your team because they bring that personal experience. My son was born with a cleft lip and palate, so we spent a lot of his first year in surgeries down at Children's Hospital. He had an NG tube. He was on apnea monitors, the whole deal. So when people come and they've got sick kids, I can go up and talk to them and say, hey, listen, I haven't been in your situation, but this is kind of what I dealt with. And that life experience, that shared experience is something that you can't teach in a class or read in a book. So anything that those past things that people went through are not negatives, those are positives when it comes to peer support. But number one is finding the right people, because if you don't have the right people, you might as well close up your team and just stop there. I think the next step, once you find the people, is get the training. That's the biggest thing. But also educate the place that you're working with. Educate the coworkers. So if you have 5 people in the peer support team, but you got 50 people in the department, if you educate that department how your team works, what your team can do, what resources your team has, then they have that information. And instead of 5 sets of eyes looking at people, you've got 50 sets of eyes who are looking out for whoever is on your department, and they can pick it out and go, hey, somebody needs to talk to such and such, something's not right here. And you increase that visibility within your department. A strong set of SOPs is also very helpful. So everybody knows, everybody's reading off the same playbook. Like if A happens, we do B, those types of things. And really just getting out there and getting into the places that you're going to be seen. Nobody wants to just see when there's a traumatic run. If you show up and talk to them, like we're talking here, when you do have something go on and you walk in there, it's not anything that's foreign to them. It's like, oh, great, they're here again, type deal. I mean, they're expecting you. They know why you're there, and so that was one of the things early on, is even knowing the people that you're dealing with. I think a lot of first responders have been burnt by previous debriefings, where we kind of sat in the kumbaya circle and everybody stares at everybody for 20 minutes and go, yeah, I'm good. And then you get up and you're not good, but you grab a couple cookies off the sheet and then you walk out, and then you're still stuck with the same problems you had before. So I think that's even when you walk into departments now and, I'm talking to other firefighters, you still get the guys who are like, looking at me like, all right, great, what's this guy going to do? But once you sit down and start having a conversation like we're having right now, it's what we do naturally. I mean, we sit down at the kitchen table, grab a cup of coffee and start shooting the shit for however long. And then all of a sudden you look over and the diffusing's done. So it's one of those things where if you get the right people, you get the right mix. That's huge. The right training's huge, SOPs. And really get if you can find clinicians, have clinicians as well. You can go to fst5.org and you can find those clinicians, and have the clinicians come into your department and ride. Like we have our clinicians come ride and do third rides. Manisha's coming road. It's really normalizing that kind of stuff. It's normalizing. Everybody's scared to go to a therapist, but when the therapist, you just rode on the rescue with you for 12 hours, it's a lot easier to go talk to that person than if you've never seen anybody before. They think, well, I'm going to bring them in there. They're going to lay me down on a couch. They're going to want to talk about my feelings and all this other stuff. But if you go, hey, listen, Manisha just rode with us for 12 hours. Oh, that's where you're going to send me to? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go talk to her. So, I mean, those are just little tidbits, but I think the number one priority, other than training, to kind of wrap up my portion, pick the right people. That's the biggest thing. And the one thing I didn't talk about that I should have early on was confidentiality. And the confidentiality portion is huge. If you don't have confidentiality, shut your team down and go home. It takes a long time to build up that trust with the confidentiality, and it takes 2 seconds to lose it. So I mean, if you become a registered team with the state, you get protections under House Bill 444, which is a law. And that confidentiality affords any peer support person or CISM person protected conversations that I cannot be ordered. I can't be subpoenaed even to talk about what I talk about in a peer support thing. And once you tell people you have that, people open up a lot easier because they go, okay, I mean, you got the power of law behind you. It's not like I swear I won't say anything. I mean, that's great. But when I can show you it's law, game changer. So I'll be quiet now. I'll let somebody else talk.
I think to piggyback off that, picking the right people, need the people that practice what they preach, right? So to normalize, yeah, I see a clinician too, like, and even maybe say, here's their name. It's all about, you got to take care of yourself if you're out there telling people to take care of themselves.
I also agree with both of those guys about picking the right people. I mean, we just put together some team bios. So I got the opportunity, they all sent me their bios and their pictures and why they're part of this team. And when I started looking at these every day and you're compiling the list and you're thinking, holy cow, we have got a ton of really amazing experience on this team. And we kind of hand selected a lot of them, right? And then now they're all coming together and they're experts in their field. But we got to remember, these people don't have to be in administration in your department. A lot of times they've been on the road for a couple of years and they've had that bad call and maybe no one's reached out to them. So like Jake had said earlier, you just want somebody to know that you're there for them. And that's what we want to be able to do. So the peer support, like I said, is kind of new for our team, but I really think that this is going to be the wave of the future. And this is what it's going to take to actually save the lives. The debriefings, the diffusings are important. Absolutely. It's a very critical piece of it. But I truly think that peer support is going to be where it's at.
And I think a big part of that, just to kind of, once again, piggyback on Kobe, is taking care of yourself, taking care of your team. Our team, it's mandatory. We go talk to a therapist twice a year on the team. It's mandatory. And if you want to go more, absolutely go more. I mean, I think I go every 2 weeks, so it's not that big a deal for me. But if you're going to get into peer support, it's imperative that you practice what you preach. Because if you're the one who's going, oh yeah, you should go talk to somebody, and they're like, oh, who do you go talk to somebody? You're like, nah, I'm good. Let's face it, we all know what we deal with. We all could spend 45 minutes talking to someone. But yeah, it's imperative to take care of yourself and have that built in within your team concepts.
And I think, Mike, when you're saying that, when we're doing peer support, we're taking on all of these other people's issues and we're taking them and making them ours because we want to do everything in our power to help them. Just to clarify that, because we feel what they feel, because a lot of us, whether which peer is with them, they've been in that same position and that might bring back memories for them. But then you can walk them through that path and connect them to the services that you need. But again, you still have all those feelings inside of you. So you got to lighten up your backpack again so you can take care of the next person.
I'll put a spin on that. I'm not going to piggyback on anyone, but I think what really helped us out and what makes our peer team successful and confident that we can handle what comes our way is the diversity. And it's one thing that I undervalued in the beginning stages. And at some point in early on, we made the pivot of let's make a peer support team and let's put this effort for career firemen. And in Northwest Michigan, we just don't have the numbers. From my vague or my dart at the wall, about 10% of folks are either willing to do it or capable of being a peer. So when you're in a region that is low numbers, you're not going to have a peer team in a single department. So when we opened that up for Northwest Michigan Peer Network, and we just said, hey, we're going we're gonna go through every agency, every different discipline, first responders, everybody can come on in. That percentage, 10% is still probably pretty accurate, but we are a very diverse peer team because of it. And it's neat because like others have said, when you have a peer team that is made up with people with diverse life experience and cultural backgrounds, you can handle just about anything, and it won't overwhelm those that are just trying to handle. Like if you had a narrow focused peer team, you're just, oh, I'll just handle it, and there's going to be some stuff you're not going to be able to handle, nor do you want to handle. So I think for those that are in attendance, if you're in a corner of Michigan that's low population and wide geographical area, please let me and Kobe know. We can tell you how we did it. And if you're with a big department and you want to know how a big department handles business, Mike has already jumped all those hurdles. He knows how to handle big department and department specific peer team. But there's definitely two ways to get to a productive and efficient peer team. And fortunately enough, we got two examples here.
The other thing I want to comment on is that up in the UP, obviously our geography is huge. And it's shut up. It is very rural, right? So when you talk about Jake, you talk about career departments, right? We've only got like 4 in the whole UP that are full-time fire departments. The rest are volunteers. And nothing drives me crazy worse when they say, oh, I'm just a volunteer. That's kind of important when you are the guy or girl that are going to be jumping on that fire truck if something's burning, right? Don't ever want to hear people say they're just a volunteer. Volunteers are all over the place up here, and they can be on peer support teams just like anyone else. And so we actually worked closely with 9 first responders in the UP in just in the last 6 months. Some are full-time, some are volunteers, right? Completely confidential. Everybody can be a part of a peer team, and everybody can be SISM trained. So with this virtual training now, there is no barriers. It is a free virtual training. There's no barriers. You don't have to travel to Detroit to go and get SISM trained. You don't have to, give up 3 days in a row. You can do 1 day a week for 3 weeks. We want to make this as easy as possible for everybody to be able to be trained in SISM and then start those peer support teams.
Yeah, I think to your point, Susan, I think like an effective peer team, it's really going to have a complete loss of the ego and these traditional ideas of boundaries and hierarchies and all this other stuff. The sooner there's no ego involved, like it just opens everything up, and you have everybody coming together. So like if you're in the thumb of Michigan and you're in EMS and you feel trapped and you want to be a part of a peer team, don't feel closed off to going to your neighborhood fire department or your local county sheriff and just start making some different connections. And before long, you're going to have a cluster of people that are in it for the right reasons, and you might have a peer team of a very diverse makeup that you would never have predicted before.
Absolutely. Okay, we have some questions coming in. Just a reminder to all of our participants, you can put your questions in the Q&A or you can put them in the chat. But we'll go ahead, and since we have a larger panel today, we'll start with the questions so that we can get as many answers from our panelists. Okay.
Ask questions, fire away.
Absolutely. Okay, so first question is, coming from an EMS background that has an old mentality of cover it up and move on, how do you rewire your brain to know that you can feel these calls now and you don't have to bottle it up because you have that support now? So how do you like redo your thinking and rewire your thinking?
I think a lot of it is finding that person that you trust to talk to, because a lot of the reason you don't talk is because you have those people, as soon as you open your mouth, you think you're going to be made fun of, or you think, they're going to go and talk about you behind your back and say, oh, well, Jake can't handle his job, so every time we have a tough run, keep an eye on that guy because he's the weak link. When you have that, you're just going to shut up and not say a damn word. But I think personally for me, once I found the people, and it's not only therapists. I mean, there's not a person on this panel right now who I haven't called and vented to about something. You know, when you find those people that you can call and talk to, that you feel comfortable talking about it, at first it's very sheepish. You won't give like full details, but slowly, once you start building that rapport and that trust, you start talking a lot more. And you do kind of rewire the brain of, okay, I can talk about this and I'm not going to be judged, or I'm going to talk about this, I'm not going to be made fun of. But for so many years, that's what we were taught. I mean, that was just pounded into your brain. So you know, I would say it took 5 years to wind that string around that stick. It doesn't take 10 minutes to unwind it. So just because it happened, you know, you've been living this for however long you've been working there, it's going to take time. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more open you become talking to those people. So for me, at least, I would say that's the best way of kind of rewiring yourself and rewiring your brain to do that, is to find those people that you feel comfortable talking to, and it'll naturally start to occur.
Oh, thank you. Anyone want to touch on that? We have another question, two-parter. What are the ways you use to overcome stigma and talking with colleagues who need mental health services, especially when the resistance is strong?
Somebody else want to take it, or I'll take it?
I guess I'll take that one. You really just need folks that just come out and talk about it, just without even any hesitancy, and bring it up. And it doesn't need to be grandstanding talk. It's just, if you have meetings, or if you have some form of communication, or an employee board, putting the contact information up is a good start. And then if you have folks that are willing to tell their story and their outcomes, or the progress that they have through therapy, then that's good way to talk about it and just overcome the stigma. I openly tell the guys that I work with that if I have something that happens in my personal life or work life that is troubling me more than 48 hours, I'm gonna call and set up a free confidential meeting with my EAP provider. It costs nothing. It's just I can do it virtually or in person, and I feel better at the end of it. I mean, it's really one of those things. It's almost, you can get to a point where you're bragging about what you're doing and the progress that's made.
I think up here, we've actually made it a point to go into a bunch of the departments, a lot of full-time departments and volunteer departments, and did stress management training with them. It's opening that line of communication and, you know, getting rid of that stigma. Let's not feel uncomfortable talking about this. We want to prepare them ahead of time. We've actually even been into law enforcement classes with seniors that are about to graduate, EMT classes that are about to graduate, saying, hey, this is what, it's not going to be all roses when you get out there in the field, right? You're going to have bad things happen. Let's talk about how you're going to approach those things when they happen and how you reach out for help. That's why Frontline is going to be such a great program, because it's so easy to use.
Yeah,
The second part to this is
go ahead, Colby.
Oh, well, you jumping in? You want to touch on that, Mike?
It's all you, bro.
All right. Second part, the two-parter here. How do you take care of yourself with your own stress and trauma experience and exposure to that of your peers? I think we kind of talked on that, and that's where with your peer team, especially if you're creating a peer team, you have to make it important. It's part of our bylaws that you have to see a clinician when you go on certain amount of calls. And not only that, it helps them make it normal, especially to new responders. The other thing is we carry this file cabinet in our subconscious mind of all these bad calls. So when we do hear of bad calls, especially in debriefings and whatnot, I mean, every one of us that's been doing this for years could paint a picture of that scene without being there, and it causes, secondary exposure trauma. So that's why it's highly important, especially any of you on here that's starting to create a team, make it mandatory that you see a clinician. If you don't have one, we have one all over on Frontline Strong, broken down in zones. So it's important. Anybody want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think self-care is huge, because you do see, and it's an unfortunate, I'm not saying it's a direct effect type thing, but you see a lot of the reason why a lot of first responders don't go get help, because we're the ones who normally help. We're the helpers. Now, when it comes to peer support, now we go, well, we're the ones who are usually helping others. I don't want to look like, I got something going on. And a lot of that is just dropping that whole thought process, because, I said, I go every 2 weeks, and it's for that exact reason. You're taking on a ton of other stuff, secondary traumas, based on just sitting in the room listening to what happened. And so if you don't take care of yourself, among those suicide numbers, there's a good amount that are on peer teams. And, they know how to hide the signs and symptoms, because they know what the signs and symptoms are. They know how to act like everything's okay. So they're a lot harder to find. But that's why it's so important for those peer supporters to take care of one another, that, we check in on each other. You go talk to somebody, because you have to take, if you don't have yourself in a good spot, you're not helpful to anyone else. And so it's really big to practice what you preach if you're going to start getting into the peer support stuff. Paramount to do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, because we're not invisible. A matter of fact, talking with Jeff Dell about, it's only a small amount, because again, the actual numbers it's just hard to keep track, but he's saying there's about 15% of the suicides on his site are from peer supporters. So we're not invisible to it. We have to definitely take care of ourselves and each other.
I think one of the things we always tell people is find your happy place. If you like to go fish, then go grab your fishing pole and go fish. If you want to hike in the woods, go and find that happy place. And some people, it's like, go get a mani-pedi, go get a massage, go do these things. But whatever that means to you, whether it's go to camp, find out what that is. But I think we're all guilty that we don't do it enough. I mean, even a couple of weeks ago, I thought, oh, I'm getting a lot of this stuff on my plate here. And I'm like, why am I feeling kind of weighted down? And I thought, you know what? Oh, I'm going to go play a game of pickleball, or I'm going to go for a walk or go for a hike in the woods. So we just have to remind, it's a constant reminder for all of us. We have to take care of ourselves, because you can't get anything out of an empty gas tank.
And I think there's a credibility issue if you're taking on this position as a peer support person, or if you're going to create a peer support team and you're going to go out and tell people about healthy habits, but you're also dependent on caffeine and alcohol, and you have poor sleep, like all that stuff, like people know, like if anything, especially like in a CISM or a peer-to-peer intervention, they're going to know bullshit. Like everybody knows bullshit. So if you're not healthy, nobody's gonna listen. It's disingenuous to even try. So I think those that are on successful peer teams understand that they're able to contribute back to their peers because they've gotten through it and they're healthier, and they can display their healthiness, and that should be contagious. Like people should want to be healthier. I've had experience where I can, within a few minutes of talking to somebody, be like, they need some help. And that's just one of those things when you are on the other side of it and you are healthy and you're clear-headed and you're able to engage and communicate with people, you know who needs help. And so I guess to the question, those that are healthy and can handle the schisms and handle the trauma of their coworkers can do it because they've learned how to handle their own business, and they're also the most open to reaching out for therapy and behavioral health support when it does become overwhelming.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Sorry for, I'm having some internet issues today. I think it's the wind outside, so I apologize. Hopefully I won't get kicked off again. Next question. This question is for Mike. Do you have to be a certified sworn officer to be a part of a police peer support team? This is a part one of that question.
I don't believe you. It just depends on each team. A lot of teams, you know, have different makeups depending on where you're at. If you're in an area where sometimes it's a regional team where they have people who aren't necessarily sworn officers, but they've got peer support or CISM people attached onto their teams. I would just find and check with your local team. And if you can't find your local team or you don't know your local team, you know, you can go to the www.fst5.org under the treatment tab and click on that, and then it'll say peers. If you click on there, you can find teams in your area, and if you call the number, which is 1-833-34 strong, they can get you in touch with those peer support teams if you want to get attached to it. But it's not cut or dry. I can't tell you yes or no, depending on, you know, every team does things differently. So I highly, you know, call whoever's closest and find out. It's one of those things. I think the fact that you're willing to reach out and help and you've got the training, that's the important thing. And just talk to those teams.
Yeah, because there's definitely no requirement when it comes to the grin glass. So like you said, it'll just depend on those teams.
Perfect. Okay. Part two of that question. Does a clinician on your team in Michigan have to have a master's degree?
Yes. So they do have to have a master's degree. And if they want to be if they're going to be your clinical director for your team, they do have to have at least a master's degree. And to be a registered team with the state, they will have had to take the ICSF GRIN course as well, as part of their training. So if you do have the clinicians, the master's across the board is usually the minimum. But we also, to be a clinical director, be on the team. There's also, we have, you know, social workers and stuff like that who don't necessarily have the masters, but they're phenomenal at what they do. Don't discount them either, because they have their place on the team as well. We all realize as peer supporters where our road ends and the mental professionals begin, and to have as many of those resources as possible to turn to is like gold. So just because they don't have a master's doesn't mean they can't be a part of the team. But if they want to be a clinical director or somewhere higher up in your team, then they'll have to have the master's and have the master's degree. Everybody should have the CISM training.
Touch on that a little bit more, Mike, where our road ends, especially for the ones just starting out with peer support.
So I think our road ends. I mean, my opinion and the way I look at it, we're not clinicians. We are by no means clinicians. We're paramedics, EMTs, police officers, dispatchers, firefighters who have some training. There's that peer connection where I can have a conversation with you. I can talk you through some hard times, but I'm not a clinician. And when it gets to the point where, you know, we can have the conversation and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I can help get you through that tough time right now, but I'm not a long-term solution. The mental health professionals are the long-term solutions. So if you find a peer supporter who you trust, talk to them. They're the bridge they're the bridge over the gap between not talking to a professional and talking to a professional. They can help you through that process. So once we do our thing and, you know, you want some long-term help, not to say we're not going to keep following up with you, stay in touch, you know, help you through the process. Because a lot of the peer support isn't like, hey, my name's Mike, I'll get you to this person, and then, hey, good luck to you. it's, you follow up with the person, you help them through the process, you get them going to clinicians. Hey, how's the clinician doing? If there's a personality conflict and you're like, yeah, this clinician, I'm really not clicking with them. Okay, no problem. We'll get you with another clinician. So, we end where we know where we end. We end with that short-term stuff. When it starts getting long-term, generally speaking, if you're having symptoms over a month after a traumatic event, we'll kind of start saying, hey, it might be a good time to go talk to somebody. Or if the problem is just a very big problem and you're like, I don't know what I can do, this is really weighing me down, starting to have some thoughts, that type of thing. All right, sounds good. We can get you in, talk to a professional, but so I think that's, for me personally, I don't know what your guys' opinion is. That's kind of like where my road ends.
I completely agree with that. If we take peer support calls in the middle of the night and we know that it's going to be what more than we can handle right then, I'll get Jackie on the phone, our trauma specialist on the phone, and say, hey, want to take a ride? And she's like, absolutely. Every single time that I've asked her to take a ride in the middle of the night. And then we'll go meet with that peer. And it's amazing. I mean, because she's got this magical connection with first responders because she's worked with them for so long that it just immediately puts the person at ease that's really struggling. And she can talk the talk, whether you're a firefighter, law enforcement, doesn't matter what background you are, EMS. She just has that connection with you. And she can take you from up here and just really de-escalate everything. It's really, hopefully all of our peers, our mental health professionals will be like that. And we have several on our team, so we're very fortunate.
Awesome. Okay. Next question. And anyone can answer this one. What does the 5 stand for? And I'm assuming this comes from, what does the 5 stand for in FST5? Susan,
I think Susan should take that one.
Yes. Finally, an easy one. All right. Police, fire, EMS, dispatch, and corrections. The top 5.
Absolutely. Rockstar. Yes, FST5 stands for the 5. The 5 stands for the 5 disciplines that we cover under this program. So we police, just like Susan said, police, fire, EMS, corrections, and 911 dispatch, and their families. So all of our resources and all of our trainings, our access to providers, our access to clinics, all of the things that we offer to our first responders, we also offer to their families, so their spouses, their children. This program covers everyone in those areas. And we wanted to make sure that the 5 was in the name of the program because the title frontline worker is associated with other groups, so hospital groups, staff, sometimes workers that work in other kind of hazmat areas and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that people were not confused with who was covered in this program as well. So FST5, police, fire, EMS, corrections, 911 dispatch. Okay. And not any particular order, because I'll get someone who emails me and said I said that their discipline was last. So
no, I think it goes fire.
No particular order. Awesome. Good job, Susan. Okay. So not a question, but we're doing a really good job. So that's from one of our participants. Thanks for that. If someone does not have a master's degree, if someone does not have a master's degree and is a first responder, how do you dictate what role to take when speaking with a peer? So this one is the person does have the master's degree and they're a first responder. And I'm assuming they're part of a peer support team as well. So this is an interesting question because I think we've gotten this question before. And Mike and Kobe, I think I'll let you guys answer it, but I think it's specific to the team, right?
Yeah, and it's specific to the situation. If they're coming to you as a peer, then you're gonna have to take the clinician hat off because they're coming to you as a peer. And don't be afraid to ask what they're wanting. That's one of the big things, especially when we talk to our coordinators of the team. Ask what they want. What are they looking for? So it's very important for you to get that information. Then that'll help you decide what hat to put on.
Yeah, I think the situation dictates it too as well. If we're going out to do, say for a debriefing, you have to have a clinician present when you go do a debriefing. If I've got that person who's got a master's and is part of our team as a peer supporter, then if I can't find a clinician and that person's responding, it also fills the role. Okay, you're going to be our clinician on this call out. So it does help the team with the flexibility of having a responder that it also has the training as well. But I think Colby hit the nail on the head. It's all situation dependent, and ask them which one do you want me on? Which hat am I putting on for this one?
I think too, like maybe it's, I think you have a lot of folks, if you're in police or fire, wherever you come from, you have this sense of like everything's a hierarchy, and in peer teams, there's no hierarchy. Like it's just people are who they are, and we all fit our own roles. And some people with masters are ill-equipped for things that a first responder MFR could handle. So it's just really the peer team. It's a peer team's responsibility to figure out their team and who fits what roles, regardless of what abbreviations are at the end of their name.
Awesome. Great answers, guys. Next up, okay, let's see here. I am currently a part of a peer support team through my place of employment, but I am curious about the 3-day self-paced course that was mentioned. Where can I find that? I think that this one may be when we were talking about how the GRIN course is split up into 3 days. So the ICISF training that we offer both virtually and in person, you can either take it a couple different ways. You can take it in 3 consecutive days, where it's like a Monday through Wednesday or a Wednesday through Friday type class, and sometimes they're even on weekends. That one's a little harder for a lot of our first responders to do, because it's hard to get that big block of time and you have to be present to get the certification. What Susan was mentioning earlier is that we also offer that same course where you can take it one day each week. So we'll have it offered 3 different days, but it'll be over a span of 3 weeks. And unfortunately, it's not self-paced, because you have an instructor and you'll have to go through, like, you have to participate each day and you're kind of taught in the classes. But it is free of cost. So if you take the courses through FST5, you can get certified, and there will be no cost to you or your department. So that is important for you to know. Let me know if that was not the exact question you were asking, because I want to make sure that that's the self-paced course that you were speaking of. Okay.
You want to mention where they could be found?
Yes. So if you take the trainings through us, you can go to fst5.org, look under training, and you will be able to see the group and individual crisis intervention training, I think is what it's called, GRIN. And it'll tell you the days and the months that the course is offered, and you can just register. There's a link in each different section of the classes, so you can register right there. Again, go to the fst5.org. Under the training tab, you'll be able to find those trainings. Okay.
Make sure you scroll down too, because sometimes you only see the one. But if you keep
sometimes you'll
scrolling down, and it shows all of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you go through the page and continue to scroll down, especially if you're on your phone, the most recent one will pop up first. So you'll want to scroll down and make sure that you have an opportunity to see all of the ones that are there. You can register for any of those. Okay.
Yeah, and since we're getting a lot of questions on this 3-day course, kind of want to touch on that. And this is up to each team, but speaking for our team, when you get that training, we don't just release you out to the wild. So when we have a debriefing, we have you sit in there, because like Mike said, we all want to help, right? But you might not like what you're hearing, or you might not feel comfortable even after the training. So we want to make sure that it is what you want to do and you feel comfortable when you're going out there, because the last thing we want to do is cause more harm in a debriefing. So that's key for us. And I think that's highly important.
Yeah, definitely do a couple third rides with it. so you kind of get the groove how to do things. You know, it's like any of the other classes that we've taken. You know, you get the classroom stuff, and that gives you the skills to go out in the world. But once you go out in the world to do them, it's a hair different. So definitely take the time if you want to. You know, a lot of teams will do third rides, like, hey, you're going to come along, you're going to observe, but you won't necessarily be part of it. That is important. Perfect.
Absolutely. So we had a few other questions about training. So yes, you can find the trainings at fst5.org. And then we had a comment that says performance psychology. While different from mental health and wellness, it does mean to be the best that you can. Self-care is a part of this optimum performance. So absolutely, we want to make sure that we're integrating wellness into your everyday performance and how you do this. I think it was Jake who said this is kind of like you got to practice what you preach in these kind of areas. You got to make sure that you're doing the self-care, you're seeing you know, if you feel like you need to talk to someone, if you feel like you need to reach out to one, that you're doing this yourself and you're able to show people this because it's a part of who you are and what you do. So I think that is so important. So we are winding down. I'm going to wrap up soon. Are there any other questions or any other last things that our panelists want to say? Mike, go ahead.
There was
We
a
have
question on
bunch in
the
chat.
Oh,
yeah,
do we
there
have
was a
another
question
question?
on the chat. Yeah.
Oh, was there another one?
Yeah. If you
Yeah,
scroll
quite
up,
a few.
yeah.
Do you see it,
I want to
Kobe?
make sure. Yeah. You want me to read it? I got one queued up right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. It says, question from the chat. It says, I work for an EMS company with a fledgling peer support program that they're trying to build up. But there's a slight disconnect between the higher ups saying we need this, and in the next breath saying, well, that seems expensive. Has anyone dealt with the lukewarm reception and or thread the gap between need and costs? I think everyone here has had that conversation with somebody at some point. Yeah, it's great what you're doing, but how much is it going to cost me? The important thing with this, and you know, we just talked about it, is the ICISF GRIN training is at no cost to you guys with the Frontline Strong program. So to get the CISM training, zero cost whatsoever. So you can go back and tell your bosses, hey, listen, here you go, FST5. They've got this program. It's not going to cost us anything. Another thing with the IFF peer support class, they're put on around the state as well. But there's also other peer support trainings that's just through the IFF, but there's other entities that put on peer support trainings specific. I know there's a specific law enforcement class that does them. So you can go through those, and I believe some of those are also through the state. You can get some funding for that. There's grants out there that you can write for to get them done. So I mean, there's a lot of avenues. 5 years ago, there wasn't any money or no one was paying for trainings. Right now is probably one of the best times that you could go get these trainings because they're being offered for free, which was never even a possibility 5 years ago. Jake, do you have something? I saw you click off there.
Well, and I think too, like, it's kind of it's a cultural standard for peer support teams that you're not compensated for the most part. I think, I don't know, I've been pretty active for 4 or 5 years now. I've never really received a dime. The only thing from employer, I have a supportive chief and I do get covered time. So I guess that's kind of a benefit, but I don't, like, from an employee-employer relationship, it's peer support and CISM is about as low cost as possible. And you got to flip it on the employer and say, well, what's the cost of retaining an employee? Because what we're doing is trying to retain employees. And I think that's priceless. So if you're met with a manager, or in the EMS world, if you got business owners that are trying to say it's going to cost too much, well, how much does it cost to replace an employee that's been around for 5 or 10 years? So like, I don't know, I think if anybody has any direct questions, hit up anybody that's on the panel to figure out how cost effective it is.
And what's the price tag that we can put on someone else's life too?
That's it right there. even if you spent $10,000, but you got one person into treatment and stopped them from killing themselves, $10,000 is nothing. And I think that's what a lot of places have to realize is there isn't a price tag on that, and it's so easy to get this training. It's not even funny right now. And the impact that it does is astronomical. I mean, you can't even, in an hour, you couldn't even explain the impact that you see when you go out and do these things and you get somebody into treatment, or you get that phone call like, hey, listen, I'm sitting here with a gun, I want to end it. And 6 months later, you're talking to the person and they're like, man, I can't thank you enough. There isn't a price tag for that. So I mean, those are the things that employers have to realize is this isn't a dollars and cents thing. This isn't a, what am I going to get for my dollar return? You're going to get somebody's life. That's what you're going to get.
I think too, Jake said about we don't get paid a dime as peer supporters, right? But the reward that we can get when you see that person, see that hope and feel that hope, and then start that trajectory of climbing back out of that spiral and starting to regroup and to, that post-traumatic growth it's incredible. That feeling is worth $1 million.
Absolutely.
And she was the nervous one to talk on this. Can you believe that?
She rocked it out. You guys all did.
She was sandbagging.
We had another comment in the chat that says the IAFF peer support training class, the one that Mike mentioned earlier in the webinar tonight. So that one's different than the CISM class. This is directly through the IAFF. It's a peer support training course that will be offered for free in May and September. So we will make sure, we actually do have a direct link on fst5.org. If you go under the partner section, you can see the IAFF. And also you can get there's a direct link to the ICISF that does everything, GRIN, CISM trainings, all those debriefings. But keep in mind that our FST5 peers also go into departments to talk to you guys directly. So these webinar platforms, our podcast platforms, we try to reach really big numbers, like the masses. However, we do everything through this program is grassroots. So we come into the departments, we will help train, we will talk to you guys about how you can get it started. We will help you guys set up SOPs. All of that is offered to you guys for no cost through fst5.org. So if you like what we've talked about today and you need some of us to come and speak to your departments, your chiefs, your peer team in person, please tap into us. All of us can be available. My last things is, you guys know I always got to remind you, fst5.org is the website. Phone number is 1-833-34-STRONG, 1-833-347-8766. Call us at any time. Keep in mind that phone number is 24/7, 365, and it is staffed by first responders. So you can get, even if you just need someone to talk to in the moment, talk to someone who answers the phone. The call specialist who answers the phone will be a first responder, and it will be somebody that says, if you need 20 minutes, I can give you 30. I can give you however long you need me to listen to you to get you to your next step. Okay. So this is great. I thank you guys so much for taking your Wednesday evening and being with us. Mike, go ahead. Any last thoughts, Susan, Mike, Jake, Kobe?
I was just going to say thanks to everyone who hung on here for the past hour and 15 minutes with us. We appreciate you guys taking your time to hang out with us and ask a ton of great questions. Hopefully we answered whatever questions you may have had, or kind of made this thing a little clearer for everybody, kind of what it is, since it's kind of brand new. But, I think I could speak for probably everybody on this panel. If, 10, 15 minutes from now, 2 days from now, whatever it might be, another question pops up and, you got a question, you want, hey, we want to do this. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? You can get a hold of Manisha and the team through the fst5.org website. I think it's info@fst5.org. And you can, if there's one of us specifically that you want to talk about or talk to, feel free to send them an email and we can get back to you guys and answer those questions offline, or if you get back talking to your coworkers and those types of things. I think I think I can speak for everybody here. We're willing to speak with you night, day, whatever it might be. And lastly, shameless plug. If you guys want to check out the Minds on the Frontline podcast, one of the co-hosts for that's on YouTube or any streaming service out there. That we talk, it's first responders talking about mental health with other first responders. We come out with a new one every couple weeks, and you can check us out there. Sorry, that was my shameless plug, but yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out here. And the one thing that wasn't mentioned that I wanted to mention was all of this stuff is not only for active members, but it's also for retirees as well. If you're going to do your peer support stuff, you got to realize the retirees is one of the highest places where suicide happens. So if you're going to do the peer support and the CISM stuff, it's always important to get a hold of the retirees, offer the services to the retirees, because they're just as important as the active members. The active members right now, they have all the resources at their fingertips. Retirees had nothing. So it's good to get in there and make sure you take care of your retirees as well. That's all I got to say. I appreciate your guys' time. I'm going to click off. I'm going to click my mute here and let everybody else talk, but I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
One comment, I just think that if we want this culture to change, then we need to be the change. We need to change. We need to reduce the stigma. We need to make this part of regular conversation and get out there and spread the word. And if you're thinking about doing this, don't hesitate. You're never going to regret being part of a peer team.
Absolutely. Kobe, any last thoughts? Jake, any last thoughts?
I just want to thank everyone for jumping on here, and especially to the panelists. Thank you a lot. Our next webinar is May 31st at 7 with Sean and Ellen Abbey. They're going to talk about the stigma and why we do not ask for help. So that's going to be another good one. They're both been doing this a long time. Ellen is Sean's daughter, and she's a clinician. So she sees it from a daughter's side as well. But thank you again.
And I'll finish off with thanking the 35 to 40 people that hung out with us for this duration. If you have an EAP, exploit your EAP and let everybody know that you're doing so. And if you don't have an EAP, demand your employer get you an EAP. And they're not the greatest for crisis intervention, but they're great for maintenance. And I'm a high advocate for frequent use of my EAP and everybody that's around me to use it. So thank you for your attention tonight. It was awesome.
And if you're going to ask for that EAP, say, boy, we're first responders. Wouldn't it be nice to have EAP that are actually versed in first responders?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Competent. You guys
I
are
want to say
amazing.
thank you all you guys for coming. It was good hanging out with all you guys again.
Yes, panelists, thank you guys so much for coming. Kobe, Susan, Mike, Jake, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of the change. Thank you for being a part of the FST5 team. We appreciate all that you do, and we will continue to work with you guys. Again, just like we mentioned earlier, you guys have access to us. info@fst5.org is our email address. You can get with me directly in there, and I can hook you up with any of our panelists if you need to from there. You can find that email address at the fst5.org website if you did not get a chance to write it down. All right, guys, this has been awesome. We will see you guys in a few weeks. Have a good one. Bye.
Have a good night.